stupendous. And I'm not saying stupendous, I'm saying stupendous.
As in Stu McKenzie and the boys.
Indeed.com. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next episode of Vinyl Stallions.
Give it up for King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard.
Oh, dude. All right. You just heard Klep. We are talking about King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard today on this episode. And this was a concert that happened over a month ago on May 20th. It was a Friday in Cleveland, Ohio at the Agora. And I have been itching to do this episode. I mean, summer's crazy for Klep and I. We have shit going on. And we've been doing a shit ton of sit downs as well. They've been amazing. But I've been itching so I don't lose my steam of how much I enjoyed this concert and how crazy it was. So I am beyond excited to dive into this.
Yeah, this was one of the crazier concerts I've been to this year. And I'm saying that mostly based on reality versus expectations. You know, like every concert you go into, even if you have no expectations, you still have some just sort of general, like, oh, here's what I think I might see. And like what actually happened versus what I thought was going to happen were two completely different things. So first thing that caught me off guard, and I know you agree with this, Spruce, because we've talked, is the demographics of the actual people that were there. We were like two of the oldest people there, like by a solid 5 years, I felt like.
No, definitely. I mean, and we were just like, so we were in the pit. The pit was crazy. But yeah, as Klep said, I mean, at least in the pit, we were definitely some of the oldest. There were some older people like back. It was definitely packed on a Friday night. I want to go back even further. I want to set this stage. So for anyone who doesn't know, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is an Australian rock band that was formed in 2010 in Melbourne, Victoria. And that again is in Australia. And we mentioned Stu McKenzie. He is the lead vocal guitarist. He plays the flute, the keyboards, but he does it all. You got Ambrose Kenny Smith playing the vocals, the harmonica, the keyboards.
Yeah, that was the guy who was on the left who sung Presumptuous.
Yep. And then Cook Craig was the guitar, bass, keyboard. Joey Walker was the guitar, bass, keyboard. Lucas Harwood, and then on the bass and keyboard. And then Michael Cavanaugh was on the drums and percussion. And so this band has been around again for a long time. They have a ridiculously amount. They have 20 studio albums, 10 live albums, 2 compilations, and 3 EPs. So a stupid amount, a stupid amount of music, which was crazy to like even begin to look at. And it's gone through. So I guess it used to have a second drummer as well who helped founded the group with Stu, but recently he had left. But what I just named was the lineup that we saw. And so for my own personal self, I really didn't know much about Gizz. My buddy B-Mac, who we've mentioned a handful of times, actually bought these tickets and then ended up going to EDC in Vegas, which is a crazy EDM music festival. So he couldn't go, and he gave them to myself, and then naturally I brought Mr. Klep, and so that was setting the stage. Didn't know that much. We dove in a little bit to some Gizz before, but for the final thing to set the stage as the preface, Klep and I, as you know, do vinyl roulettes. The second vinyl roulette actually happened after this concert on the same exact night. And we were firing. We did the one vinyl roulette 1. We did vinyl roulette 1.5. And we were just so amped for it that low key, we were walking into this concert kind of overlooking it. And I think that's what you meant, Klep, by saying just like the expectations. I mean, we weren't even mentally prepared to even step inside to see a concert. We were so focused on what freaking vinyls were we going to get afterwards.
Yes, that's an excellent point. Yeah, so we had Vinyl Roulette 2.0 set up in Spruce's house before we left for this concert. Like we had everything set up. We had all the slips cut and in a hat ready to go, and we were just itching for that roulette. But we're like, of course we're gonna go to this concert. Like, like how are we not?
And they're from
I guess to
Australia as well, again, which I'm like, when are they ever going to come to Cleveland again? And if I'm not mistaken, we looked at their tour schedule. I think they were in Mexico the
Yep.
before that, but they had like a week or so off. So these boys were ready to freaking explode. And man, oh man, did they explode.
Yep. So this was their 2022 world tour. They had just finished the Mexican leg of it, and Cleveland was their first stop in the States. So, yeah, crazy to think about. And then I guess to extrapolate a little bit more on their genre, like rock is a good way to describe them because they cover so many different things. But, like, I guess if you wanted to try to narrow it down a little more, they're kind of like an indie rock jam band. And like with the size of their discography too, like we were going in there thinking like, oh, this will have the feel of a jam band concert. Like it totally didn't though.
No, it was crazy, and we'll get into the genres as we go. But let's just dive into this. So, Club and I get there pretty late, honestly, and we go right into the pit, right on the. If you go to the Agora, I am a right side Agora freak. I love the right side. It's much more open always to get onto the floor. So, Club and I get down there. We actually run into my cousin Chaz. Shout out to Chaz in the chaos, but
Jazz.
it is packed all the way, and we are just standing in the back. And then they come out with the first song, which was Crumbling Castle.
And so as I'm looking around, I'm expecting everyone's just gonna like kind of be swaying, just enjoying themselves. But like I said, that was not the vibe. So all of a sudden I see somebody getting tossed around and I'm like, oh, is there a fight breaking out? But then I see somebody else get tossed around. And what we see is a mosh pit unfolding.
And it
So naturally, we want to get in the mix. We're like almost getting our ribs crushed against the back of the floor because, we got there a little late. Like we're packed in there and we're like, all right, here's a chance. And so what do? We hop right in.
and as soon as the first note was hit, everyone stormed. So if you were taking part of it, you're storming the front. And so Club and I saw that opportunity, made a Stallions move, and boom, we were involved in just the mess. But so Crumbling Castle is a hard hitting, like scream, just absolute, like almost metal, like yeah, like hard hitting song. Followed by that was, I gotta find the set list, was Venusian 2. From there it went to Planet B, and then number 4 was a song called Gaia. So I'm gonna break up this concert with those first 4 because those first 4 were the hard hitting, just what honestly I thought all of Gizz music was a majority like, just like a lot of screaming and just power notes and just absolute insanity. And that's when everyone moshed definitely the most during those 4 songs. But Klep, you got the song that you wanted.
Yeah, which was Gaia. I mean, a little bit of Planet B too, because that one is off of Infest the Rat's Nest, which I had listened to like maybe 4 songs off of the day before, and one of them was Planet B, and I was like,
There is
ooh,
no
this
Planet
would be great.
B. So
But
yeah,
yeah, I was itching for Gaia, and probably the entire time leading up to the show, like every other sentence, I'm just like muttering, like, I am God. I am no one. Just just repeating the lyrics to Gaia. And
I
sure
am
enough, we got it.
Gaia. And so for um reference, so they were touring on an album that just was put out. I believe it was in April.
Yeah, Omnium Gatherum.
Yes. And so Gaia's on that, and then a lot, like we got a lot from that album, honestly. Um,
Mm-hmm.
let me see.
I think a couple of live debuts. I know Presumptuous. That was the live debut of that song. And then the Grim Reaper. That was
Yeah.
another.
The Grim
That's
Reaper
another
cashes the
Omnium.
check.
Yeah, yes. That's like almost like a funk hip hop song.
We'll get there. We'll get there. So again, those first four were very, yeah, like I don't know, it was hard rock hitting that, and then they went into a song called "Her and I" (parentheses slow jam 2), which, correct me if I'm wrong, they said that they were so this is kind of when where it kind of took a turn, where it kind of went into a more like jam band feel, um where the lights were moving, they kind of just took you on like long solos and whatnot. But Her and I, and then Sleepwalker was the one after. I don't remember which one it was, but they said there's a new song that we're going to do right now, and it has a Latin feel, kind of a Santana vibe. Do you know which one out of those ones? I haven't had a chance to listen to either of those two since the concert.
My guess is it was probably like Presumptuous or the Grim Reaper because they hadn't played those live before. All
No.
these
I'm I know for a fact it was one of these two, because I was mind
then
blown. Because
then it was probably Her and I.
Yeah.
Because so I'm just looking at the set list they have, and it says in there that they did an Am I in Heaven intro into the song, and then teased Presumptuous and Iron Lung.
Okay. Huh. Wow, that's pretty crazy.
Because all of the songs that they've played are on one of their studio albums. So
And they
the
might
only
have.
thing I could
Yeah, I'm not sure what. It must have been like one of those songs or something, and that her and I, because I remember they said that, and then Stu was like, "Should we just skip it?" But they ended up doing it, and it turned into like a Latin vibe. And then the next one, Sleepwalker, must have been the one that was like the jam bandy. I have a video of it that we'll post along on our social.
Well, it could have been Her and I too, because that is an 8-minute song. It's off of I'm in Your Mind Fuzz, which is from 2014. So, a little bit of their earlier days.
We will fact check ourselves, go listen to those two songs, and then we will clarify on our social which one we were talking about. But just know that I was actually jaw dropped at going from a screaming, mosh pitting, crazy first four songs to getting like a Latin vibe, to getting the jam band vibe, and then right to Presumptuous, which is this song that is unbelievably good.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, it was the live debut of it, and what really made it stand out was they switched singers. So at this point, like Stu McKenzie had been singing, he's the lead singer on all of the first 6 songs. And so Ambrose Kenny Smith, if you're looking at the stage, is on the left side, and he had just been kind of tapping away at his keyboard the whole show. I was almost like, what is this guy even doing? Like, what is he really adding right now? And so when they finished Sleepwalker, he talked to the crowd for a little bit, didn't he, before they actually started playing? So
because he said he like
honestly,
wrote that for his like girlfriend or something, or it was for some, or like his ex, I remember. And he said he wrote Presumptuous.
And I'll be honest, it was sort of hard to understand him because his accent is so thick. Like we said, they're from Australia. But yeah, he just nailed Presumptuous. It was so good. And yeah, live debut of the song, super cool. The crowd was so into it.
Yeah, we lost our minds. That was one of the most standout crazy parts of the concert, because he just took the mic, got right up front, and then continued to sing after that. So Presumptuous, Le Tongue in Cheek. Check out that song. That song's so good.
Presumptuous.
And then Sea of Trees was the next one, which I think Ambrose may have sang as well.
Yeah, and this is actually off their very first studio album, 12 Bar Brews.
Mm.
So, and I did not know that at the time, but yeah, after the show, I was like, I have to know what I just heard. So I just looked up all the songs, and I remember that one stood out because I was like, oh, they went way back on this one. Because we got, let's see, one, two, three, looks like four songs off of Omnium Gatherum, which is about half the set list. So yeah, getting, a little bit of a deep dive going back to that first album, that was kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it was. And then from there they went into a song called Hot Water, which is kind of like a again just a different vibe. So throughout this whole concert, I was jaw dropped
Mm-hmm.
at how just many different, like, I don't really record that much at concerts. I'll try to do like one or two videos here and there, like just remember where I sit, or obviously with this podcast, got to show the people what we're seeing now. But I don't do much. But during this one, I have like 5 different videos because I'm like, no one's gonna believe me that I went to the show and saw this. Like, it doesn't make sense. So Hot Water is just kind of a different vibe. And then it goes into this another live debut called The Grim Reaper, which is
Mm-hmm.
legitimately a rap. They started rapping at the end of this thing.
Yep. Another Ambrose Kenny Smith song.
And not just rapping, but you got Stu playing the motherfucking flute
The
out there
flute.
as well.
Yeah.
And so people are starting to mosh again towards the end. Like in the middle, everyone was kind of calm a little bit, but and it wasn't even like a mosh. Like me and Club talked about it, how like our feet weren't even on the floor. Like it was like being in a wave pool where the undertow's just taking you left and right, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
have any control. So like we were tossed. Like I was second row at one point, and it was during the Grim Reaper, and I just remember being like, "What is happening? This man is playing the flute. There's a harmonica involved. They're rapping right now. Like, where am I?" And oh, something else, Club, that we didn't. We honestly should have talked about at the beginning was we talked about the diversity of the fans, but how loyal these fans were. How
Yeah.
dude, they would play one note and immediately know what song it is. And these people, again, 20
Yep.
studio albums, and they knew every lyric to every
Mm-hmm.
single song. All these like college kids or like post college kids. It was like I couldn't believe it.
I think there were some high school kids in there too, for sure.
It was so just awesome to see. And again, they're from Australia. Like, I don't know the next time these guys are coming back to Cleveland. They're coming to Detroit in October, which I'm gonna try to maybe make
Mm-hmm.
it up there with the BMAC because he didn't get a chance to see them this time around, obviously. But it was, yeah, it's just like such an interesting concert. I couldn't believe it. Um, and then there's one more
Another
song. Oh, well, go ahead.
just a quick story. So just because we were talking about the mosh pits, so there was one point where I like turned around, like I'm in the mosh pit, and I'm like kind of trying to like get out, like I just need a break. So I'm just trying to get over to the side to just catch my breath for a second. I'm like dripping in sweat, and I look over my shoulder, and this dude is trying to come into the mosh pit with like a full tall boy beer. I just like am thinking in my head, this is not going to end well for this guy. And it doesn't. He gets shoved right away. I see half the beer pour out, right out of the can. I get a little shower, and this dude's like acting like this person's crazy. I was just like, dude, you're in a mosh pit. Like, what do you think is going to happen? And then, of course, the guy who he got pushed into pushes him, and I just see him bouncing around like a pinball. And by the time he's finally like, still, he tries like pouring his beer, and nothing comes out because he had lost it all.
Oh, the Grim Reaper cashed this the check. Damn. Yeah, no, it was crazy. Like it was definitely the craziest mosh pit I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, it was harder than the corn mosh pit from when we went out to Fort Wayne, like
Exactly.
easily.
Yeah, no, it was. It was like you're gonna push around. But like as we talked about, Club and I were definitely one of the biggest people in there. So like there was a point where like we were like kind like I was far up, you were like behind, and just like within 2 steps we were just next to each other because we were just like move,
Yeah,
move.
that's true. The corn mosh pit had like, people with like 250 pounds of muscle in there.
We we just red seed that bitch and said move.
Yeah. King Gizzard, that mosh pit was like 170 pounds, like bone.
So they played one more song to end the set.
Ripper.
And my God, was I obsessed with this song after we went and saw this. And it just so happened to be the first song on that Omnia album or Omnium. And it's
Omnium
called
Gatherum.
The Dripping Tap. The 18.5 minute ripper that takes you on a journey. But it's not the journey that I'm involved that I enjoy the song for. It's the 3 different ways that they sing in this song that just gets me listening to it every single time. The dripping tap won't be turned off by the suits in charge of our and now. So there's
Such
like,
a good
dude,
song.
yeah, like there's that part where they're singing like the drip and tap, and then there's the other part where they're like drip drip from the tap,
Yeah.
don't slip on a drip,
Don't slip.
drip drip from the tap,
Drip from
don't
the
slip
tap.
on a
Don't
drip.
slip.
And then the verse is like, I'm a mighty sounding no, the conceptualizing thoughts. And I don't know. You people have to go listen to it, but just know that that is probably my favorite Gizz song, just strictly from that. They played the whole thing, and it was just like another genre of music as well. It kind of felt like it was just like the end of like a Guitar Hero song. Felt like I was just playing like Through the Fire and Flames. Like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
it's so good. They had that. Another one that we I forget which song it was. It might have been Sea of Trees, but they there was one that like sounded like fucking Green Day, dude. Like I just cannot stress enough how jaw dropped I was at just the 11 song mix that they gave. It was almost as crazy of a shuffle as the Stampede shuffle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that's sort of what it was, just like a live Stampede shuffle. Another interesting thing too, so we noted that they ended with the dripping tap. Unlike most bands, no encore. They were just like, all right, here's our set, we're playing it, and then we're done.
And I didn't believe you. So Club's always scouting the set list beforehand, and he goes, "That's it. All right, let's go." And I'm usually like ready to leave, and I'm like, "Dude, wait, hang on. They'll come back. They'll come back." Nope. Australians don't believe in encores.
Yeah, it was very different. Cause yeah, sometimes, like stay tuned for the next concert review. You'll hear about a show with many, many encores.
Meow 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 meow. But yeah, besides that, dude, Gizz, this band I'm so glad to be introduced to. I'm so glad they decided to stop in Cleveland and we were able to see it with our own eyes because they are so unique and they just bring a whole different vibe. Like live, they go nuts. Stu is just walking around like this, getting fucking crazy. I think we talked about
Playing
it.
the harmonica, playing the flute, just like,
Dude, the
yeah, that's
bass and
the
the
other
guitar
thing.
were so locked in. We forgot to mention that.
They also, dude, they were switching instruments like throughout the show. Like that's part of why, like when we were introducing the band, like we couldn't just give one instrument to certain members. Like they would just be like handing off guitars and basses. Like the only constant was Ambrose Kenny Smith on his keyboard, and what was the drummer's name again? Let me get it up here. And then Michael Cavanaugh just on the kit. Like those were the only two that didn't change instruments like at
And
one
Ambrose
point.
was the one playing the harmonica, so technically.
Well, yeah.
But besides that, man, it was a great concert. I'm glad we were fucking finally able to do this thing and talk about it. And I'm gonna be able to post all the crazy videos that we got. Gizz, drip, drip from the bathroom. But besides that, my name is Spruce.
I'm Clip.
And this has been another episode of Vinyl Stallions.